Namaste. Welcome, beautiful souls. Happy Saturday, and welcome to my weekly chat. And today I'm going to recap a bunch of things that are going on my channel, including 2 polls that I'm going to post this week, and I'll explain that in a little bit. I'm going to talk about a new membership level on my channel, as well as an opportunity to receive a personal complimentary reading. So that's what's happening here today. Welcome, Clevis. And you can see on the desk there's a bunch of Rider-Waite-Smith decks. Part of my 2025 plan is to compare and contrast decks by theme. And February has been all about RWS. And I have looked at a number of tarot decks and done some review and reflection. And this has been, for me, really interesting. I know for a lot of people, kind of boring going through lots of side-by-sides of similar decks, but it's I really kind of enjoyed it. And so now I'm going to put this poll up for you of these 8 decks here. Welcome, Saskia. Namaste. And let me just name these decks for you and talk a little bit about each of them. On the top, we have 4 decks that are, hi, Catherine, welcome. There are 4 decks that are very 3 of them anyway, that look very close to original, what was it called? It was called the Tarot, actually. When the deck first came out, it wasn't called the Rider Tarot. It was just called the Tarot. And then the Rider Tarot, and then more recently the Waite-Smith Tarot, or RWS Tarot, somewhere in there as well, too. And these 4 decks there are filters on at least one of them, but look very much like what you might know as the PAM A and the PAM B decks. And the 4 decks below have all been recolored, and they also are similar to PAM A and PAM B art. Some might say other versions of the original Waite-Smith deck, but they have different colors, and there have been some changes in line work, but all are quite similar to what we know to be the original artwork. And in one of my videos, I listed some articles by K. Frank Jensen, who does a really good job in looking at what may have been the original line work of Pamela Colman Smith. One of the things that has really come to light for me, hi Shonda, welcome, is that so some of you might not know this, but I lived in Japan for a number of years, and even after those 3 years living there, I went back a few times, and I have a very close, perhaps karmic connection with that culture. And maybe that's one of the things that I've come to love about Pamela Colman Smith's artwork, is its connection to ukiyo-e art, Japanese woodcut art. And it's funny, that I believe at one time I did have a print that I bought. It's funny, I don't know whatever happened to it, that I purchased when I was living in Japan. And I like that about Pamela Colman Smith. I love her story. It's really powerful. And in even some of these decks on the table, her line work has been changed. So there's a group of folks who don't like the muddiness of her work, the thick lines that were perhaps intended to look like Japanese woodcuts. And this was not a deck that was created with woodcuts, but certainly influenced by that style of art. And if you have any of the biographies of Pamela Coleman Smith or any books that refer to her story, you'll see a lot of her other work on posters and different pamphlets that she created over the years. They look very, very similar. And in many of the US Games decks, I know in this one for sure, you do get extra cards of her art, and you can see that influence. Hi Kim, welcome. And so that's sort of come to mean something to me. And while I do really like some of the recolored decks and the redrawn decks, I just want to acknowledge that there's something to those thicker lines as, for me anyway, as a connection to the art of Pamela Coleman Smith. And that's new. That's new. I don't think that I ever cared about that or even considered that in the past. So just offering that up. And another thing that has given me some pause for thought is if we redraw and recolor an artist's work, can we call it the artist's work? I don't know the answer to that question. It's funny. And so I was watching, there's a new tarot tag that I want to respond to. It's a 15 deck tag. And I wonder if I wrote it down. I think I did. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. And one of the decks that I saw, and it was Tammy Pie who was sharing decks, was a mini Thoth Greenie. Now I'm really kind of going astray here. This is a much beloved and sought after tarot deck version of an older version of the Thoth deck that has the green borders, and the colors of the deck are a little different, and the printing, the font on the bottom is different. I can't tell you who has the authority to print the Thoth decks. I'm sorry, I forget the name of the folks that do. So when I saw the Thoth Mini Greenie, which is a scan of the deck that I just showed you, I thought, wow, does this person have permission to do this? And it's printed, I believe, on Make Playing cards. And I've really started to question these kinds of things. And I know that US Games has rights to the Pamela Coleman Smith deck. So there's a number of US Games decks here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 of these 8 decks are US Games. And yet, I just don't know the answer to this question. And yet it honors a classic tarot deck. And yet people are mucking with original art. I am doing so I work in the school system Monday to Friday, and I am in a class right now and I work with special needs students. And one of the girls I work with, she's taking a class called Mixed Media. And the project that they're working on right now is called High Art, Low Art. And the exercise is they have a scan of a classic painting. And they are printed in black and white or sepia tones, really nice paper. And so they each chose one. And then they are, on top of that print, they are painting or adding embellishments and changing the clothing. Or the girl that I worked with, we added some 3D to it. And on the netting of the lady's dress, we put some beads and things like that. And in a way, it kind of reminds me of what's going on here. Sort of, I don't know if you would call Pamela Coleman Smith's art high art, but high art meets low art. There's I think it's important to recognize we have seriously changed the original artwork. And this is not called the Pamela Coleman Smith Wiser Tarot. It's just called the Wiser Tarot. And I guess that's all I really need to say. Hi, Mary Beth. Welcome. Lovely to have you here. So I'm going to post 2 polls. And on one poll, I'm going to have these 4 decks. And on the other poll, I'm going to have these 4 recolored decks. I will put this poll in my, on the posts on YouTube. I will also put these polls, and I would put them all together, but I can't. I think you can only put 4 at a time, in my Facebook group as well, too. I will also listen to the comments below this particular video. So the question is this: what is your favorite of the top 4? The Centennial, the Plaidbacks, the Tarot of A.E. Waite, and this one comes in many languages. This one's published by AGM. And this particular deck is a Lo Scarabeo deck, so it's a little different in size, but it's very similar to the Pam B deck. And the reds are definitely redder. I have another version of this deck that's not called 1909, but it's the exact same deck, and it came in this box. And I actually purchased the 1909 just to verify that. And I know that there are other mass market Waite Smith decks out there, but these are the ones that I'm going to work with. And if you haven't seen these decks side by side, I did a bunch of side by sides this week, so you can have a look at those. So of these 4, I'm going to get you to pick your favorite. And this one has a, what would you call it? Like kind of a antique-y kind of filter to it. It's not bright, whereas the Plaidbacks it's very, very vivid. And the skin tone ranges between reddy red faces and quite pale faces. And the printings also differ quite a bit with this deck, because I have a 30-year-old copy of this deck, and it is not quite as bright as this one, which is a newer version. And this is the same deck that came in a blue box some years ago. And then this one is not as bright as the Plaidbacks, and it's quite a beautiful version of this deck, but you can still see all the cross hatch marks on the drawings where it was colored in with the pencil lines. And I would say these are all very close to Pam A. And then this one, there's a couple of things with this deck. If you go back to those articles that I referred from K. Frank Jensen, and I still haven't found the book. I've been looking on every single used book website I can find, because I would like to read his whole book. I think this deck is most closely related to the PAM-B. And there's also an issue with the size of the deck. So because low Scarabeo decks are smaller, narrower, some of the faces kind of look squished up. Many years ago, I had the borderless Radiant and the borderless Waitsmith, and I did do a side-by-side of those with a Centennial, I believe, and I had a similar experience with those borderless decks because there was something about proportion, and they were kind of wonky. I don't have those decks anymore. So this is the question: what is your favorite of these 4 decks? Which ones do you have? Which ones do you use if you use the Waitsmith? And if you want to respond here too, you can do that. But you can also look out for the upcoming poll. All right. And my intention here is to help people that are new to tarot, and perhaps, or new to the Waitsmith tarot, and perhaps choosing their first Waitsmith deck. And I think that it would be good to have one of these that's not recolored. And if you like the colored decks, then go ahead and get one of these colored decks, but make sure you have one of the more original ones to compare it to. And all of these decks are, if I didn't say that already, mass market. Presently available mass market. Okay, so Wiser Tarot, very, very pretty backs. And Universal. And one of the little bandwagons that I got on to a couple of weeks ago in sharing these decks was that US Games indeed uses the word recolored, but doesn't use the language redrawn. And the truth is that the line work has changed. And these cards are, and the only one of these 4 decks that doesn't use the Pamela Coleman Smith signature is the Wiser Tarot, I believe. You won't see, oh, it is on there. Pardon me, it is on there. Okay. One of these 4 decks doesn't use the Pamela Coleman Smith signature. And I like that because it's not her artwork. In a strict sense of that. All right, so the Wiser Tarot is a deck that is full of beautiful purples, and it's a little darker in shade. And one of the things that it has going for it is that a lot of the faces are recolored, so you can see a lot of different cultures perhaps in this deck, and I think that is a great bonus for this. In the dark colors of the general skew of this deck, some of the little symbols are harder to see. And yet another positive is that it does have a kind of a color theme for the suits. So the pentacles are kind of greeny, and the air suit is purple, I believe, and it's nice for beginners to have a sort of a color-coded suits. This one is the oldest of the 4 here. No, the Banawade is the oldest. This is the Universal, recolored by Mary Hanson Roberts. And you can see the line work's been cleaned up too. It's nice and clean and clear. And I'm sure that even looking at the one above, you can see that the lines are a lot thicker in this particular deck. So we have both clarity recoloring and redrawing. And yes, the Pamela Coleman Smith signature is on this particular deck. And this one here is the Radiant. And there's a few things with this deck that are kind of interesting. So also notice that some of them have the Pamela Coleman Smith lettering, and others have redone that. There's something a little bit funny with the proportion of this deck, but it's a really beautiful deck, and I do like the colors on most of the cards. I like how in this King of Pentacles you can see the grapes and the leaves and details. There's something kind of precise about what goes on in this deck. And this one is really funky. It is a product of its decade. Frankie Albano, who recolored this deck, I get a sense of as a artist in every way. He was a musician, likely a vocalist. No, he was a vocalist because there are records. And it feels very much a product of the 60s and early 70s. A lot of the colors are very psychedelic. And so I'm going to ask you to vote on these 4 recolored decks as well too. So you can, if you have time this week, to come back and respond to those polls, either in the Facebook group or on the community page of my YouTube page. I would appreciate your input. And then I'm going to do a video this week of top here. I'm going to rate these 1, 2, 3, 4 and rate these decks 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a bit of a project for me this week. Okay, so you have homework as well too. Next, I have had a lot of requests for more yoga classes and more meditation and things like that. And my house is very full right now. I'm not teaching Zoom yoga right now. I have very little space in my house. However, I want to try to fill a few niches at the same time. And so I have created a new membership level for this channel. And for some people, it's quite expensive. It's $30 a month. If you attend a yoga class a week or a special session, then that will seem like a very reasonable price. What you get extra in this level is a meditation style class per week. And I will be uploading those on Monday nights. Sometimes I will broadcast live. Sometimes I will do a pre-recorded one. It depends what's going on here in the house. These will include something to settle you down. So there will be breath awareness for sure, maybe a little bit of really simple stretching, and then I will guide you into a meditation. And I will try to focus these around themes and different parts of the body and different intentions. And the classes will be somewhere around 30, 40, 45 minutes in length. And I would suggest that when you listen to these, you do so on a near empty stomach. It's a really good idea not to do meditation and breath work when your tummy is full. You can feel really sick afterwards. So that's what I'm going to start next week. And you could, if you want, if you waited for a month and you paid for a month, then you would have 4 classes that you can that you can look at and just join for a month, right? So that might be more affordable for some people. And then go back. If you already are a member, then go back to your citrine membership or your carnelian membership, whatever you have. So just so you know that is out there. I should probably make another video just announcing that, because it's kind of buried in today's chat. And also on Mondays, so just before that, I'm also going to record 3 readings every week. Last year, 2024, I did a broadcast every Saturday, including decks from Tarot de Marseille decks, not all from France, but some Italian decks, Besaison decks, some that were contemporary versions of the Tarot de Marseille. And I went through all of the suits, I went through all of the majors, and did comparisons among many, many different cards and my own personal reflections of the Tarot de Marseille. And so there were quite a few of you that followed along in that series and have asked me not to abandon that. And so I'm going to do Monday Marseille readings. And those will not be done live. They will be done recorded. I will record it here, and I will do 3 readings and then upload the readings. And if you would like your question answered, then all you need to do is to share your question. And you can do that in the chat below today once this is finished. You can do that in a post that is on my the post on YouTube. And I believe there's also a post in the Facebook group where you can put a question. And then each week you could put a question down below, and I will choose 3 questions and answer those. I won't use your name, and I will do a reading with a Tarot de Marseille deck. And I'm going to try to feature different Tarot de Marseille decks in the readings. Okay, so that is new, and that will be starting next week. So there we go. There's that. And anything else for today? I think that's it. So if you have any questions or you want to share anything, let me know. I'm not sure if I showed you this deck, the Samurai Tarot. Is that right? No, Samira May. The Samira May Tarot. There's a lot of symbols on this deck, and I purchased it because it looked like a really old kind of tarot. Have you seen this deck before? There are a lot of symbols on the cards, including, so we have the Hebrew letters, we have the numbers for the Hebrew letter, we have planetary symbols. There are all kinds of symbols. And I sent a message to the creator. So for example, this is the High Priestess card, and it has Mercury on it. And there is no guidebook that accompanies this. And so I've sent a message to the creator to see if she has a PDF or anything. And this is really inexpensive. I also asked her if this is a legitimate copy. I bought this through Etsy, and I'm hoping that she will reply to me and let me know. There is also a more expensive version of this deck, very expensive, that I think would be really lovely. It comes on much larger cards, and I'm hoping not this is a very laminated card, and it really doesn't do justice to the artwork. And one of the reasons I bought this deck is that I want to take more time to study the Hebrew letters and the paths on the Tree of Life, and expand my knowledge in this department. And this particular deck uses the older system. So the Golden Dawn uses Aleph as Fool, and this particular deck uses Magician as Aleph. And that is the that is the that is the same, like the Mariel. The Mariel Tarot uses one as Aleph. I believe that the Tarot of the Holy Light has one as Aleph. And so there are different ways of applying the Hebrew letters to the major arcana. And so I think that's my next layer of study. And eventually I will do a workshop or something and share my observations and all of that. Yeah, so kind of excited to get into that. All right, I do want to do a reading today, but I want to answer Magdalena's question here. So I'll see if I can do this for you live. Because I actually joined my own channel so I could play with this stuff. Okay. I'm very sorry, my voice, I have not been well this week. Share screen. Okay. All right, if I go here, sorry everyone, I don't think I'll be able to do the reading today. Okay, so did you see that? If I go here and I click on perks, and here's an upgrade button. And then you can upgrade here. Okay, so that's how you do it. And I'm going to leave you for today because I can't stop coughing. And I'll just edit out that little bit where I left the table. All right, so you all take good care of yourselves, and I will see you soon. Namaste.